and they're off.
Here we go.
Further Faster, the best independently owned outdoor store in the known universe. Whether you're heading out on climbing, paddling, tramping or running adventures, look no farther than Further Faster for all your gear and expertise needs over the summer. Head over to 57A Buchan Street, Sydenham, Otautahi, Christchurch, or hit them up at furtherfaster.co.nz.
10 out of 10.
Thanks, man.
It goes something like further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Oh, further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Dirt Church Radio.
Episode 303 of Dirt Church Radio, the trail and ultra running podcast. I'm Matt Raymond.
And I'm Andrew McDowell.
Kia ora, everyone. Andrew and I are here today together as Ali is at Queenstown Marathon, and then she's off to a little race called Coast to Cozzy, which I understand that you are too. How's it going, man? Taper madness?
Yeah, oh man, totally, eh? Jump on a plane in a couple of days. Actually, when this comes out, I will already be in Australia. I only ran 60 Ks this week, mate, and it felt like horribly little amount of training. And you know the old story, they say always better to go into a race a little undertrained than 1% overtrained. So I'm definitely taking that one to heart this week.
You speak about listening to your body a lot. How hard is that lesson? Is that a lesson you're still learning?
Yes. Yeah. The last few months have been a bit tougher than normal to get big weeks in. I'm not really sure why. I think there was a lot of speed work for the marathon, which kind of left me a bit more beaten up after the sessions than, just jogging around for long runs when you're just sort of training for a normal ultra. And, just maybe a bit of sort of the Western States and then Blue Lake, couple of 100-milers. And I think I felt just a little beaten up in general. So instead of sort of trying to just white knuckle it through leading up to Coast to Cozzy, I've actually pulled back far more than I normally would. So we'll see. I'll let you know after Friday as to whether or not that actually worked.
I spent the weekend driving around in a truck with your pacer, one of your pacers, Scott Bowden. And,
choice.
Yeah, at the Aotearoa Afghanistan marathon, we were setting it up and pulling it down and just being out in the forest. Something about just being out in the forest in a high-vis vest, putting up trail markers. It was super, super cool. But he's super excited as well to be, and when this comes out, he'll be with you. So
yeah, and I had to keep reminding him, you're pacing for a race like this. It's like, dude, you realise that this race is so long that you as a pacer, you're going to be doing like 80 to 100 kilometres as a pacer. Like just doing that, it's a huge undertaking for them as well. Him and Tilly Peppers, who's also pacing. Between the two of them, they're going to be doing their own ultra. Just kind of cool.
What it's just quickly. It's different to other pacing events. So it's not like he's picking you up at 120 kilometres. How does it go?
I probably need to read the rules again, but I know that there's a couple of spots where you have to have one because it's a slightly dangerous part of, there's a thing called Big Jack at about 60 Ks where you have to have a pacer run up the hill with you.
Right.
And then you don't have them, and then you do pick them up later. I think about 110K. And then you have one basically for the rest of it, and they just either switch out or do long shifts or however that all works.
Wicked. Oh, man.
Whoever's the most awake. I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the most awake person is your driver. So
yeah, and he doesn't run at all. So he has one job. Yeah.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how everyone gets along, including me.
I'm not sure if our guest on Dirt Church Radio this week has actually done Coast to Cozzy, but he's damn sure pretty much done every other race under the sun. Michael Wardian, what a legend.
Man, it's so cool. And props to Ali for making that connection happen. pulling some wonderful strings.
That's right.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we got up super early on what was the US's election day last week or 2 weeks ago and spoke to him, and he was so gracious with his time. As we said, he spoke about, if you Google him, look on his ultra sign up, I mean, we'd be here for 3 or 4 hours just listing all the races he's done, but, his curiosity for adventure is what keeps him moving forward. We talk about that, his history with running, obviously, and running with his son. So him and his son did their first marathon together, which is
so cool.
Yeah, which is a super cool thing. He wants to run on the moon, which I'm super enamored with, and do some other stuff. But one of the things he talked about was Tour Te Waipunamu, the brevet that he did with Hoogs. Yeah, so the term inspiring gets bandied around a bit in the sport, but he certainly fits that bill. But look, first, and this is your inaugural one, Andrew, we should probably crack on with this.
It's the greatest run ever. It's the greatest run ever.
Greatest Run Ever, which is brought to you by Squadrun. Give their 4-week special coaching trial a go. You can find the link on the website, which is www.dirtchurchradio.com. This is the part of the show where we ask you to write into us and tell us your greatest run ever. It doesn't have to be a race or a mountain summit. It might just be a run around the block, something that's sung to you for some reason. Send them in to us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. And this is from Matt Dean. My greatest run ever changes frequently as I'm new to trail running, and amazing experiences are continually upstaged by the next as I get more immersed in the sport. This run was no exception. I got into trail running in my mid to late, he says, 40s, and I've managed a 25k and a handful of other distances so far, with the goal to complete a 50k. A career change and a non-traditional schedule has meant more fun running and fewer races this season, but a 50k is not far off. To be honest, running trails for fun without a specific mileage or time goal has made it more enjoyable and given me the freedom to explore new trails with no expectations. This particular run was during the fall when the trees turn a multitude of colours here in the Pacific Northwest, truly a spectacle to be savoured. Running a fun and technical trail through this visual masterpiece can be otherworldly, almost a spiritual experience. I drove about an hour away to the Kaimiak Butte Escarpment, a 5-mile long spine of greenery and rocks rising out of the Palouse in eastern Washington to run the West End Primitive Trail. I had planned on participating in the Summits of the Air, or SOTA, as part of this run, an amateur radio sport which blends well with trail running. After getting a couple of miles in and up onto the summit of Kaimiak, I stopped and played radio for an hour in awe of the stunning view of the surrounding plains on a pristine, cool and clear day. After making contact with several other stations, including Japan and France, on a tiny, packable, high-frequency radio, I headed off into the forest for the rest of my journey. Who actually would have thought this sport could get more niche?
That is so unique, isn't it?
We've got donkey racing, backyards, radio trail running now. I mean, we're not critiquing, but it's incredible.
Oh, I kind of love it.
Yeah.
It's super nerdy and cool.
Right. The trail undulated up and down over a rock wall which splits the escarpment in two, weaving in and out of single-track stone passages for several miles before finally descending back onto the Palouse and returning to the parking lot. At the end, I was spent, my water depleted, and still thoroughly amazed at the incredible scenery and thankful I found trail running, even at this age. So far, this has been my greatest run ever, but I've no doubt another is just around the corner. Thanks, Matt. That is... we've never had a HF radio related greatest run ever, so...
It makes sense, like you're climbing up a mountain, you may as well try and get in touch with people.
Well, thank you, Matt, and the rest of you, as we said at the top, send them in. Right, let's crack on with our conversation with the mighty Michael Wardian.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Dirt Church Radio. Today we're talking to Michael Wardian. He's talking with us from the US of A, and it's a public holiday there today, isn't it? And the eyes of the world are watching at the moment because it's election day. How's your day going, Mike?
Yeah, I have not gotten to the polls yet. Our son, Pierce, who you guys have met, just turned 18, so it's his first voting experience. So he was not up for early voting, so we're going to head to the polls after talking to you guys.
Wow, I'd be keen to hear how that goes for you, like what it's like out there. Have you out on the streets at the moment? What's it like?
It's been pretty quiet, actually. I had an eye doctor's appointment today, and it was right by a polling station, and I was expecting like huge queues, and there was not. So I don't know. I know a lot of friends and family have already kind of voted early in Virginia, where I am. Each state. We have 50 of them, and they all have different rules and requirements. And so we're based here in Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. And it seems like a lot of people around here have kind of already cast their votes. So, but that being said, I'm excited for Pierce to get to kind of share that experience and cast his first vote. And I just want to be there to see it. I think it'll be cool.
It's certainly our son voted in his first election last year.
Oh, congratulations!
And yeah, it's a cool demo. You know, that sort of. I guess there's a lot of global tension around your election. Hey, but if you drill it, and that's a nice apolitical thing to say. But if you drill it down, it's about that thing, isn't it? It's families going out, getting to share this process and getting to share this privilege that we have of actually voting. But are you? Yeah. I mean, does it seem like things are more sort of tense at the moment, or is that overblown? Obviously, we don't live in America. We don't know, kind of truly what's sort of going on, or is it just sort of like another normal-ish day? Hey gang, it's Matt here. I just wanted to let you know about That's It, which is a range of natural skincare products from Aotearoa, 100% natural, antibacterial and antifungal. I'm using the anti-chafe gel because things are getting hot over summer and I want to keep moving in tip-top shape. This stuff is delicious. It smells great, goes on easy, washes off really well, doesn't wreck your clothes. I'm a massive fan. I'll tell you who also is a massive fan, Ini Raumati. He is using it to keep him moving safely and without undue discomfort in his 8-stage races over 8 continents in 1 year. Look, head to that'sit.nz for more information. Check out their range of products. They've got heaps and heaps of stuff, but their anti-chafe gel, it really is that good. That'sit.nz. Give them a crack.
Church Radio.
So far it seems like it's pretty normal like election day, but I suspect later when like the votes start getting counted and the tallies start coming in, and there's only going to be one winner. Hopefully there's not a tie, and so yeah, I think like then it might be more noise and circumstance. I know my buddy was visiting a doctor downtown, and they've like put up barricades like in front of their buildings and stuff like that. So like I think there's definitely people that are preparing for the outcome to be different than normal.
Yeah, I mean we hope not. We hope that it's a smooth process, and that.
Yeah, I hope it's boring.
Yeah, me too. Bit of a segue, really. But did you visit the White House when Obama was in charge?
Actually, it's weird. Yeah, did you remember that? Yeah, we did get a chance to visit the White House. I was lucky enough to meet a guy that did the kind of security for Obama. Like he was the guy that goes ahead to different cities when he's going to arrive and like, finds the way to get to the airport if like everything goes wrong. And so he was at the terminal in London when I had finished the marathon, and pretty typical fashion, I finished the race and like 2 hours later, like I'm on a flight and I'm still like in my like shorts and have my bib on, and he's like, "Oh shit, you're Michael Wardian." I was like, "Oh yeah, I am." And he's like, "Oh, cool. I've been like following your journey." And I was like, "Oh, nice, man." And so we just hit it off, and he's like, "Hey, you should come check out what I do." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be awesome." So like we went for a run, and then he like invited Jennifer and myself to come visit the White House. And I don't know if you know how it works. I don't know if it works the same way where you guys are, but like when the president comes through, he's like so busy that like everybody that's going to be in the hallway that he's in, they like get you out of the hallway so he doesn't have to like say hi to everyone because he'd never get anything done if he had to be like, hey, how are you doing? So like we had to like wait on one side of the hallway for like 10 minutes before he was coming so that he could walk through and we wouldn't get in his way or the people we were with. So like it's really interesting, and like he has people that open the doors because that's like wasted time. So like it was like one of those things where you're like, oh, I never thought that that was somebody's job, but like somebody's job is literally like to open the doors so that he doesn't have to open the doors, and that he doesn't, and somebody goes ahead of him so that he doesn't have to talk to people that aren't in the schedule.
Can I just say, I feel like you need that person. So I think it was 2016 UTMB. We'd had this awesome day hanging out with Michael and his family in Chamonix. And it got to like, I feel like the registration closed at like, let's say 6 o'clock. And we start walking through the village, the event village. And honestly, about every meter, Michael would get stopped by somebody like, oh, hey, Mike, like, can I get a photo? Da, da, da. And it was taking so long that I was starting to get high anxiety about him not making registration and go through all this process. Like, I know this actually was full on. So I feel like you need that person.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't know if you saw like last weekend I ran in New York, but the week before I ran with our son Pierce in his first marathon, and it was great. But like literally, like he was like, he's been dealing with that his whole life at events. And so like he was like, oh my gosh, like I wonder how long it'll be before someone notices you. And you know, we get stopped, and like I love it, and I never find it like to be a chore or anything, but like he would, I remember like he would just, as a younger kid, he'd be like, can you put a mask on, like, or something so that we can just go through town and not have to stop. And you know, he's been around it for a long time, but like it was just cute. Like he was like, I have 5-minute over under and that you're gonna get stopped. And of course, like we turned the corner and come in, and it was in 2 minutes, and he's like, I win, you know. And but it was great. Like I think that's one of my favorite things about running is like you get to bump into so many people and meet people that you wouldn't normally have a chance to interact with, and everyone's kind of on the same field, and we're all doing the same thing on the same day. And yeah, it's for me, it's awesome. Like when you hear like I was lucky enough to like pace like a nonverbal autistic athlete this past weekend at New York named John. And like his mom was like, you know, he's hasn't really been loving running the last couple of years. And like, you know, the experience with you like really lit the fire again in him for the sport and for the love of the sport. And then I had a person, like I had a film screening on Sunday night, and that person came up and was like, oh, this inspired me to get back into running. So like, it's crazy how like, you know, a little interaction goes a long way and can change someone's life for the better. And, you know, if that means that I get somewhere a little bit late, then it's worth it to me.
How was that running your first marathon with Pierce? I mean, that's powerful, hey?
Oh my God, it was like a dream come true, man. It's like a 18-year dream in the making. And like, it was my first marathon. We ran the Marine Corps Marathon here in Washington, D.C. I thought it was my 175th like full marathon, but I actually found 2 marathons at the little website that gave me that information had missed. So I think it was like my 177th marathon. But it all started like in 1996. I ran my first Marine Corps. And so to get a chance to run again with your son, yeah, it was just special, man. It's like one of those moments. It just made me kind of misty eyed. And I was so proud of like the way that he approached it. And he had no real expectations other than he just wanted to finish. And then he was really confident, but then we did an 18-mile run, and then he became like a little less confident, but also like still committed. Like, you know what I mean? At that point, he could have been like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, but he was resilient. And I think his goal in his head before we did the 18 miler was he wanted to beat my time, which was like 3:06:54 for my first marathon. And then we did an 18 miler and it took almost 3 hours. And he's like, oh, okay, I think maybe I'm just want to go sub 4. And that's what we ended up doing. Like he did amazing, but he really had to dig, and it was like never kind of in question that he was going to finish, but it was hard, And so it was like, for me, I loved it because it was like the perfect amount of hard where like it was the first like 10 miles were pretty easy. And then he started to like have some trouble, and then he had to like eat and like figure it out and eat when he didn't want to eat and do all the things that you guys know you have to do if you want to finish these big things. But he had to work through it all himself. And then I was happy to be there to like kind of guide him, but also like he had to like still make the decisions and do all the things. 'Cause you can only be like, you can tell somebody like to do it, but it doesn't mean they're actually gonna do it. You guys know this from pacing people, like, or people will be like, oh, I can't, my stomach doesn't feel good. And like, yeah, of course, like no one wants to do all those things that you need to do. And to get him to the finish line, I got to see him kind of go through all that and have the pain of like, his quads hurting and like knowing like if you go 1 second faster, like that could be the end of your race. But like you have to like in your mind be okay with going a little slower, even though it feels bad. And then there was a little girl that passed us like in the last like 800 meters. And I could see that he wanted to chase her down, but he just was not in a position to be able to do that. And like, yeah, sometimes you have to check your ego and do what your body's letting you do. And so, yeah, it was nice to get to see all those things. And then, to see him just be emotional at the finish line. Like as soon as he saw our wife, like he and I both like just got like super teary. And so, and then his brother and, yeah, I don't know. It was like one of those like moments that you'll never forget. And I hope that he never does either. And, we got to share that, and hopefully we'll get to share kind of more of those experiences going forward. And I wanted to make sure he had a good experience, and like I think that he wanted to have a good experience, and I think it was like we had like really good weather, and the crowd support was great. And if it was like 0, like for you guys, I'll convert it to Celsius, but like if it was like 0 and like sleeting rain or something, like that would not have been what I was hoping for. So for him, it was like, I don't know, 10 or 15 degrees and like cloudy, but then got sunny. So it was pretty much perfect.
It must be, well, I mean, I know this myself with my kids, and Ellie, you'll experience this, and Michael, you certainly have. Your kids are either going to go one way or the other if you're so engaged in something, aren't they? And it must be such a, and especially for you, it must be such a fine line to walk. How to make your kids hate something that you do is go on at them about it, right? Like,
yeah, I feel like we've been lucky that they've kind of gotten into it on their own. And our other son, Grant, he's 15, he'll be 16 in about a month or so. And he's, not doing a lot of running, but he's doing a lot of other things. And I think, hopefully eventually he'll want to do some of this longer stuff. But what's cool is they both, like my first love was lacrosse, the sport of lacrosse, and they both are interested in trying out for lacrosse for the spring. And oh my God, my little heart pitter patters. Like I took him up to the field yesterday and we were throwing the ball around and working on stuff. And it was just one of those like just happy moments as a parent where you're like, because I think the last time they played was like second grade. And like, so it's been, I don't know, 10 or 15 years since he's played.
I guess there's a bit of a debate around kind of that early specialization for kids. So I'm keen to hear, like, because you've become this amazing runner who's had incredible experiences. So you started with lacrosse? Did you start with sport? And then what led you to becoming the Mike Wardian that we see today?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I started, kind of young with lacrosse. So fourth grade for me. So I think I was maybe 10 or 11. And then I actually pretty much focused on that. I did some wrestling and I did some um, soccer, but or football for you guys. But I mostly focused on lacrosse, and I was pretty specialized and played at a high level. Like our team, local high school, we won the state championships for lacrosse, and then I played in college for three years at a Division I level, which is kind of like the highest college level. Our team was not one of the highest teams. We were like at the bottom of the highest teams. So we were the teams that you go to early in the season when you want to get a couple wins before you have to play the good teams. That was our role, was like to just like practice all your stuff. But from there, I just picked up running kind of just to stay fit, and then kind of fell in love with it and wanted to qualify for Boston. And then I didn't know you actually had to qualify. So I just literally like wanted to run the Boston Marathon. So I skipped over like a lot of the early stuff. Like I never did cross country. I never did track really. I just decided I wanted to run a marathon, and then qualified at Marine Corps, and then got hooked. And from there started doing longer stuff. Like quickly decided I was going to run. I ran Boston in 1997, and then decided I'd run Chicago, New York, Marine Corps again. And they were all in like 4 weeks, and everyone was like flipping out. They're like, oh, no way, you can't run that many races that close together. You know, most people, and it's still kind of the case, you do like a spring marathon and maybe a fall marathon. And so to kind of go off the reservation, when I would tell people that early, was surprising. But I noticed for me, like I just got stronger each race, and I just didn't kind of worry about that I'd run a marathon the week before. And then I found out about the JFK 50 miler, and that was kind of my first like foray into longer stuff. And when I heard about it, I didn't even believe it. I don't know if you get this with your people, you know, but you'll tell them you're running like 80K or 100K, and people are just like, what? Like, I don't even like to drive that far, you know, or whatever. And yeah, I just was like, I just can't believe humans can actually do this. And I did it. And well, I thought I was going to win, which is funny because I was like, oh, I run like 2:30 for the marathon. So if you just do 2 marathons, you know, I should be, you know, close to 5 hours for 80K. And of course, that is not how it actually works. And so I did not win. I got a big case of humble pie, but I did learn that you could run that far, or I could run that far. And then from there, you know, just kind of kept progressing in the sport, and then getting to have more and more opportunities, and then I feel like I still am kind of in that point where, you know, I've done a lot of things, but there's still a lot of stuff I want to do.
I mean, on that, you are well known for your, you know, the volume of racing, and even, you know, talking, you know, you did New York last week, you did Marine Corps Marathon just gone. You know, you did the consecutive, what was it? You did the Olympic trial, and then what was the marathon you ran the next day? And you went,
oh my gosh, yeah, good research, man. Yeah, I
journalism.
ran yes, I did the Houston Marathon, and I did the Houston Olympic trials, and then in like 2:22 or 2:21 or something, and then the next day I ran the Houston Marathon in 2:31. Yeah, but I think like even now, like that was 2012, I think. So a couple of years ago, but I just finished the Appalachian Trail running like 2,197 miles on October 1st. And then, you know, I was able to run these marathons kind of a couple of weeks later. So, it's been lucky that I have good recovery skills, and that, you know, my body allows me to stay mostly healthy to do all these things.
What is the most challenging, you know, in all your experience, what have you found the most challenging to recover from? I mean, obviously your recovery, like you said, it's pretty quick, but what's the most sort of challenging distance to recover from backing up, or the most challenging format?
Oh, for me, it's been the really long stuff, like running across America in 2022 when I was running 80K a day for 61 days. That took me almost like 15 months to feel kind of right from. And then I'm really curious. Like I've been so savagely tired after finishing the Appalachian Trail, which was 60 days of running. So yeah, I'm pretty curious how the recovery is going to go this next like 12 months or so. I feel like maybe it's a little bit faster this time just because I've done it once before and I kind of know what I have to come back from. But um, yeah, I think the really long stuff, I think for the shorter stuff, um, I'd say, yeah, something where you have a lot of vert, is always really challenging. So like kind of recovering from a race like Hard Rock or UTMB, takes a little longer than a race with less vert like Tarawara or, um, even like the Ultra Trail Australia with the Blue Mountains. Like you have some vert, but there's a lot of kind of runnable stuff. But the stuff where it's like straight up mountains, I feel like takes a little bit longer to recover from. Yeah.
And what are your best tips for recovery?
Oh man, you know what I've been doing lately that I love is I don't know if you guys have it there, but Epsom salt baths. Um, like they're so like old school and you feel like kind of like a grandma or something, but like I feel like they really help. And I just did one because I just had surgery on my toes. And that one of the things they recommended was like a 10-minute soak of your feet. And I was like, whatever, I might as well just soak my whole body. And like, I feel like the Epsom salt baths like really have like, I usually have like a little bit of a right Achilles kind of like nodule, like a knob kind of on the back of my Achilles. And I feel like that's actually like helped a lot. So yeah, I would go for Epsom salt baths. Like, I know people do like the ice showers and stuff like that. I'm just too much of a wimp, man. I just don't like being that cold. So like, and then I love sauna. I just don't have one. So like, I'd really like to get a fancy sauna. So if there's any sauna companies out there that want to sponsor an ultra runner, this guy, let's talk. But yeah, I really like the sauna. And then what else I've been trying to do is I'm not really good at it. And like our son Pierce is like making fun of me, but I'm trying to get more flexible. So I'm trying to become like a better stretcher. So yeah, that's something I'm working on. And then I think for me, like eating like whatever your body's craving, is really helpful. And even if it's like supposedly like a bad thing, like I'm definitely like, look for a salty or fatty something, after a race. But a lot of times it's like, really nice juice, stuff like that. And like kind of giving your body what it's asking for, I think is really helpful.
Man who just ran Appalachian Trail describes himself as a wimp. Ali, where do you stand on the hot cold continuum? I'm not an ice bath guy either. I'm a hot shout. Like I
Yes.
stay away from all that. What about you?
That being said, like I do see the benefits of it,
Yeah.
and like sometimes it's really fun to do. Like we took a trip, our family did Antarctica this past January. It was like the seventh continent for Jennifer, my wife, and our boys. And we jumped in the water. And like after you get out of something like that, you feel like, oh yeah, like I'm alive. So like I totally get it. And your body feels like so good. You get those pins and needles and everything. So I just think I need more toughness when it comes to coldness. Which is why I've done races in like the North Pole and Antarctica and stuff like that to kind of build up that resilience because, there are, a lot of the world is cold and like, I don't want to limit what I can do because I'm afraid of the cold. So I've been trying to get better about it. But if I had to choose, I would definitely say I'm on the team warm for sure.
What about you, Ali? You team warm, team cold?
I am actually team cold, I reckon. Like after a run, as long as it's not one, if it's hot, still hot or warm, then get team cold all the way. Yeah. It's like
Wow.
you said, it's refreshing, like you feel alive and you feel clean too, like being so sweaty and stinky and dirty.
So yeah, I mean, I guess there's pros and cons to both, right? And it's I guess also if you're ever in Antarctica, it would be rude not to take advantage of any safe water sources. I mean, you wouldn't want to, have a heart attack jumping in there, but my gosh.
Yeah. Well, you have to sign a waiver first, so they definitely make sure that they're not going to get in trouble for you having a heart attack.
What was the water
There's a
temperature?
dude with a boat hook there, just waiting.
Oh, it was just above freezing. I think 34 degrees Fahrenheit, so maybe like 1 degree Celsius or something. It was super cold. Like it was.
Did everyone go?
Yeah.
Like, how deep did you guys go? Did you go like under, or what did you count as a?
Oh yeah,
depth?
you can. Yeah. So you can, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you can probably go back and see it. But yeah, they kind of put you in like one of those life-saving like dinghy, like buoy things, and then you kind of fully submerge, like yeah, but it's just super quick. So they rope you up, so in case you do pass out, they can get you back. Yeah, it was pretty epic, and you don't have to do it. Not everyone did it, but I'd say most people did it, and yeah, including like our kids and my wife Jennifer, and it was just epic to see. Yeah, it was cool. It was like one of those like life moment type things where you're like, wow, can't believe we just did that thing.
Seems like you've made quite a habit of doing things that people would turn around and say, hey, look, I can't believe you just did that thing. I mean, you just completed the AT, the Appalachian Trail. Was that was that on your mind for some time, or how did that come about?
Oh my God, yeah. That's been like the longest standing like goal of mine since I was 16 years old. So the same age as our youngest son, Grant. First time I like went and did a camping trip on the Appalachian Trail with my buddy Ethan Merlin, and I was like, oh, someday I'm gonna run this. And of course, then it took me like 34 years to actually make it happen. But it was like always in the back of my head. I was like, oh, if I ever get fired from my job, I'm gonna totally do the Appalachian Trail. It turns out like I haven't gotten fired yet, and now I'm like the owner of the company. So like I had to basically like fire myself from our company for like 2 months to like go do this goal. But yeah, man, it was magic. But it's also like weird when you've had a goal for that long and it's always there and you're like, I'm gonna do that thing. When you actually do the thing, you feel a little, or I felt a little listless afterwards, because it's always been something I've like talked about and wanted to do. And now that I've done it, I was like, oh, now what do I do? So of course it didn't take me long to find other things that I'm going to do, but it definitely was like one of those things where it's like, oh, dang, I did the thing. And I feel like I was talking to my buddy about this morning, because it's like sometimes it's better to have a thing that you want to do than to actually do the thing, because then you have something to look forward to. It's kind of like the anticipation of the trip is sometimes better than the actual trip, or, yeah.
So what have you got now lined up? Like obviously you've tried to fill this goal. Like I remember you once saying that you wanted to run on the moon.
Oh,
Yeah.
I do. So I've been in touch with my buddy Richard Donovan that does when I did the 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. So he's opened up the Space Federation running. So like I definitely would like to run on the moon. That is high on my list. But I think the next kind of huge undertaking is I want to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And so that is like a big project that it'll probably take 1.5 2 years to get ready for, but I'm already on day 2 of training for it. So and I've been rowing for a couple years now, but like this, like earnestly I've started so this is day 2. Yesterday I did like 2,000 meters, so not very far, but with some burpees and all that kind of stuff built in, and then today was just a 20-minute row. So and I still have a broken hand from the Appalachian Trail, so I've been kind of working around that, but the rowing didn't seem to bother it. So I'm getting started on the process.
This is exciting. I'm keen to see how this
Oh my
goes.
God, it's so cool,
Yeah.
dude. Yeah.
So it's obviously not just running adventures. Like you came to New Zealand and gave Tour Te Waipunamu a crack, didn't you, on the bike? And
Oh my God. Yeah, it was so hard. Yeah, with Yugi. It was like one of the hardest things I've ever done. But like he was so kind to let me come and be his partner. And I was actually shockingly I mean, I knew I would love hanging out with him, and I always do. And Orla and like everybody in New Zealand is just awesome. And anytime I get a chance to like be in that part of the world and get to spend time with people that love to be outside and love to do cool stuff, like yes please. But getting hurt was like so scary because I thought it was going to ruin my chance of doing the Appalachian Trail. And I'd finally gotten approval from like work and my family, and then I got hurt doing something that my wife was like, you should never do that, that's just dumb. And so it feels doubly bad when you get hurt and then you know that you should probably not have done something like so stupid to get hurt. But like, man, it was so fun, and I would love to try to do something like that again. Like I really had a great time, but man, it was way harder than I thought, like so hard. But like just inspiring to see people that really have it like dialed and know what they're doing. And like Hoogie was basically like babysitting me the whole time, but like most of the people were like solo just kicking ass. So like just getting to see like how much just awesomeness there is out there. And like, of course, like I got to see a lot of New Zealand that I hadn't seen also, which was great. Well, a lot of the South Island, like, yeah, like it would definitely be cool to, I guess they have those brevies and stuff like that kind of, and just like big adventures that you got. I mean, you guys always have cool stuff going on. Like, it's just, you know, the nature of being a Kiwi.
Yeah, we're pretty good in terms of people to landscape ratios. I mean, what was the Tour Te Waipunamu? You know, it's one end of the South Island to the other, isn't it? It's a brevet on a bike. You're going uphill and down dale. What was the most challenging part for you?
I mean, everything. Like, it turns out, like, I did one huge bike, one huge, like, cycle ride. Like, I bought a bike, like, a week before, and then I rode, like, I think 500 Ks. Just, like, I literally bought some dude's bike, like, put a bunch of food in it, and rode from Washington, D.C. to Pittsburgh, and in, like, nonstop, basically. I stopped for like 3 hours halfway through at like 200 miles. And then I told Hoogie, and he was like, oh, cool, man. If you did that, you're good. And so then I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to try to run like a super fast marathon now. So I just stopped like riding the bike basically. And then I got to New Zealand, and I was like, oh shit, now I got to ride from one end of the island to the other. And so like, it took a couple days to get used to like being on a bike, and then being on like a fully loaded bike is a big difference than being on like a lightly loaded bike. And like riding the bike was not as much of a problem as like carrying the bike everywhere. And like, it was one of those like races where you're doing some like stuff where you're just like, dude, I'm going to die. Like literally, like if I fall off the side of this, like you're going to fall down a hill into, or not even a hill, like a mountain. Like where I got hurt was in the Dampier range, which is like somebody's like private yard basically, but it's like mountains, like legit mountains. And then you have like these tiny little bridges that are like cable bridges that you're trying to carry your bike across and stuff. And then you have to like lift your bike over. It's like, and of course, like Hoogie's just like a freaking man child. Like he can just pick it up like with one finger. Yes. Like, but
he's a big man.
Dude, he's just like a monster. Like he can just pick up like a car. And of course, like he's like, and he doesn't need to eat anything but like cheese and salami for like a week. Like he doesn't care. So like I was like had all these like those vegan meals that you guys actually have some really good like freeze dried stuff down there, but like I'm like preparing all this stuff, and he's literally like just eating like a tortilla with like cheese and pesto and sausage on it. I'm like, fine. Like he is like, I can eat this for like 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, dude, well, need a little more diversity. So like it was a big learning curve. And then just seeing like all the other like all the people in that race are just badasses. So like just seeing like how like dialed they were and just to be able to navigate that and the weather. But man, it was so awesome. Like we would just like throw down our bivy sacks in the middle of the woods, and like I learned so many cool skills that I was able to use on the AT and for more adventures going forward. So like I had a great time. And yeah, I was really worried about being able to get like vegan food on the along the trail and like in your shops and stuff, but like that was never a problem. You guys are super accommodating. Like, you know, even like the like kind of petrol stations or whatever had good stuff that you could find.
I've really enjoyed hearing about this adventure. There's a lot of good imagery there.
Yeah, but like well, what's funny too is like when I got hurt, because you guys have the really cool the ACC, right?
Yes.
Or the AAC,
ACC.
yeah.
ACC,
So like,
yep.
yeah. So he's like, oh yeah, we can send for a helicopter and come and get you. And he's like, but it's not far to get out. And I was like, oh no way, man. Let's just see. And literally, like, I had like a rock that I was laying on to try to like loosen up my back that I had like strained, and I like tore like my PCL, like the little part of your like hip thing. And he's like, oh, it's only like, I don't know. He said like 50K to like the next like checkpoint. It was not 50K, dude. It was so far. It was like so far. And so eventually like we get to this like hut, and we got service finally, because like, you know, sometimes you don't have service or whatever. And we call Orla, and she's just about to go out for an adventure, and she drives like 5 hours to come save us because no one comes to get you on these things. And then we have to drive 5 hours back. And then like, I didn't really know what was wrong. And it's kind of hard. Like, you guys know there's only like 3 MRI machines in like all of New Zealand. So like if you have like a real problem, like, you know, like you're not figuring it out with like imagery. It's like you're going to like a PT or a physio, right? And so like luckily Orla was able to get me in because it's just a long wait. So like I got super hooked up like just by, you know, knowing people and being in the endurance community. But like I was scared it was going to be really bad. And then when I got back, like my team here at like MedStar really helped get me back on the path to health. And that allowed me to do an Ironman earlier in this year, and then do the Appalachian Trail later in the year. So, you know, the nice thing was the biking felt really easy on the Ironman after doing the Brevi.
I bet it
Because
did.
the bike was like really fast and light and not full of like my food for the next 5 days.
Oh man, what an adventure! Where did you get your love of adventure from? Like you've done, in the time that I've known you, you've done so many diverse things that, you know, most people wouldn't dream up. Like where did this come from? Where do you think you've got this passion for doing different crazy things?
I think I'm like I want to be an adventurer. Like I feel like I've always like thirsted for that. When I was younger, I would read books, you know, like I don't know, like the traditional ones like Robinson Crusoe or like My Side of the Mountain, or I always loved those, you know, science fiction-y type books where like people are going exploring like far off like parts of the world or parts of like the universe. And so I feel like I've just done it through sport rather than, you know, the traditional adventures. But I definitely like my neighbors trying to get me to join like the Explorers Club. And I feel like that's definitely something that I want to, you know, do in the future. Like I haven't paid them the money yet to be a part of the club, but I think I feel like I try to explore like what I'm capable of, and traditionally that's been through running and kind of endurance sports, and you know hopefully I can continue to do that. But a lot of times like it's just like I consume so much like crazy like content. Like I'll see somebody, like I saw my agent, he was running a marathon at the Boston Marathon on a treadmill, and I was like, dude, I can beat that time. And so I was like, I'm just gonna do that. And like or I'll like read a story about like an ultra pedestrian walking across the America, and I'd be like, that's amazing. Like that guy like literally was like walking in like leather boots and still averaging like 50 miles a day. Like, but I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And so like I'll see like or hear about like something crazy like you were saying like the double marathons, but I also like there's a really famous ultra runner called Marshall Ulrich, and I had heard that he had done the Leadville Trail Race and then drove himself to Pikes Peak Marathon. And he had the record for like doing them like back to back. So when I got into Leadville, I was like, oh shit, maybe I can do that too. And so like I found out what his time was, and then I got a spot into Pikes Peak, and I finished Leadville and then drove myself to Pikes Peak and ended up breaking his record that was like from 1970, you know? And so like, or no, 1984. And then there's a trail here called the C&O Canal. It's like 300 kilometers. And I heard about a guy that had set the record in 1976. And so I was like, oh, I wonder if I can beat that. And so like, sometimes it's like just as, you know, as random as like, oh, I wonder if I could do that too. And then, you know, if I could do it faster. And then, and then I just go and try to do it. And like, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out. But sometimes it does. And then, you know, something cool happens.
With those, when you're going after someone's time, is there a bit of a courtesy? Are you like, oh, hey, by the way, just so you know, I'm going to go out and try and do this, or are you just like out there sniping it? Like, what's the courtesy there, Mike?
Usually I'll like announce it and say like, you know, I'm going to try for this, or like I'll try to reach out to the person. And most of the time, like a lot of people have reached out about trying to break my record on the C&O Canal, because I did break that guy's record, and I'll be like, oh, good, go for it. Like, you know, like, so yeah, I think the nice thing about the community that we're in is everyone's really supportive, and like, no one thinks their record's going to last forever, dude. Like, if you do, you're crazy to think that. Like, I mean, we just saw it this year, like at Leadville, like Matt Carpenter is like one of the most incredible athletes ever. His record got broken. I mean, Killian's records have been falling. Like, I mean, it's just inevitable that, you know, there's going to be a progression. And, you know, if you get stuck on like, oh, this is my record, no one's going to get it. Like, that's just silly, man. It's just like so dumb. But that being said, like, you do be, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I should try to get it back. And I'll be like, what? Like, it's just crazy. Like, there's so many other things I want to do. Like, do I really want to go back and do that thing just to say that I have the record that no one really is going to care about in like 20 years? Like, doubt, you know, that's just crazy.
Speaking of Marshall Ulrich, I mean, he was in that generation, that sort of precursor to the like people like yourself, and I think about sort of Anton Krupicka and Killian, and in that sort of almost for our generation, that golden age of ultramarathon. How was, and I read his book about running across America. What was that process like? And I guess it ties it to the start of our conversation. You talked about, you know, you've got these 50 states, they're very distinct from each other. There's a difference in landscape and infrastructure, and people and all culture. What was it like running across the United States of America?
Oh man, that was another dream come true. I mean, for me, I chose first off, like, I don't know if you know how it works, like, but you can choose to go east to west or west to east. Most people choose to go west to east, and the traditional way is that you start in San Francisco or you start in Los Angeles, kind of like Santa Monica Pier, and most people start at City Hall in San Francisco, and then a lot of people are looking for the shortest way to go. So a lot of times that's you end in New York City. And if you wanted to set the Guinness World Record or the FKT, I think you go San Francisco City Hall to New York City Hall. So that's like kind of the official route. But it always depends on like the year and what roads are open and closed. So like there is kind of a lot of logistics that go into it. I chose to run along Route 50, which is a highway that shockingly I live like less than a kilometer from. So I live on Route 50 in Washington, D.C., and it runs from the ocean and the Atlantic all the way to Sacramento, California. And then from Sacramento, you take another road down to San Francisco. So I started in San Francisco, ran to Sacramento, got on Route 50, and literally ran on Route 50 across the entire country. And so like it was cool to be on the same road technically that you're on in California that you will be on in like Maryland when you're, touching your feet in the Atlantic Ocean. And so, and especially that I lived on it. So, I mean, it's just, the differences are huge. Like, California was like pretty quick. I think I was through California in 3 days. And then I went into Nevada, and I was in Nevada for almost 10 days. And then in Colorado for almost 10 days. And then in Kansas, which is like everyone thinks is super flat. It is not. But I was in Kansas, I think, for 12 days. And then you keep kind of going on the part of Nevada that I was in is called America's Loneliest Highway. Literally, it's like 150K between towns, maybe. So like the people in this one town, Ely, that we were in, if they want to get groceries, they drive 4 hours to Las Vegas to get groceries. So they do that like once a month. They go to like a big like warehouse store and they get groceries, and then they come back. Like, so it like is super remote. It's one of the darkest areas in the country, like with no lights, because there's just nothing out there. And then once you kind of cross, like the dividing line for us is the Mississippi River. It kind of, I don't know what it would be in New Zealand. I guess it's probably the channel for you guys,
Cook
right?
Strait.
Between yeah. But like, that's kind of like we have the big Mississippi River that kind of divides the West and the East. But then you kind of go, so the way that it works kind of is like west of the Mississippi, you have kind of the Midwest, which is between the Mississippi and kind of like the traditional Western states. And then once you get east of the Mississippi, it was literally like I was going through a different state almost every other day. So it would be like, I'd be in like Illinois, and then Indiana, and then Ohio, and then West Virginia, and then Virginia, and then Maryland. And then, so like it just became, once you got east of the Mississippi, it was just really dense with like people and traffic and noise. And like if you're west of the Mississippi, it was like a little more big sky and farmers and nothing.
What did these people in these isolated communities make of this guy just running the length of the country? He must have got. Did you get any sideways looks or?
Oh my God, yeah. Like you'd always have people that were curious. Like I think it's funny. We just produced a film and it just came out on Sunday. So I definitely, we haven't shared it yet with like the internet and the world, but it's limited release. But it was cool to just get a chance to like kind of relive it. So it's kind of fresh in my mind. But I don't know. The people are, I think it's like people anywhere. Like the people are so generous and for the most part kind. Like you definitely have, if you're running on the interstate, you guys probably have this, like there's some animosity towards people running, like that they're in their space of the cars and like, why are you on the road? And I think that usually comes from a place of just like, they're scared they're going to run into you and they don't, want that kind of extra hassle to deal with. But for the most part, people were awesome all along the way and being helpful. And like a lot of people were curious. I was doing it for charity to raise money to build a well in Ethiopia for clean water. And so like I had a lot of people that would come up and make a donation like in person or online. And we raised over $100,000 US. It was more closer to like $130,000 and changed over 2,000 people's lives. And now it's actually closer to 4,500 people's lives. So just seeing like the amount of impact you can have and like mostly because people are like, oh my God, what's that idiot doing? And then they're like, oh wow, that's a good cause. We should donate. So like, I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for when you do something stupid and you're trying to raise money, is like get people's eyeballs and attention, and then hopefully help a lot of people along the way.
Incredible. I just come back to, we've got a question here. It's like, what do you got for 2025? And you're actually one of the few human beings that I've talked to in 6 years of doing this where I'm like, yeah, that's a reasonable goal, running on the moon. There's not too much left. Is there anything,
Well, I haven't done that yet, and I don't
row the
have a
Atlantic
budget
and then
for
run
that
on the
yet.
moon.
Yeah,
But, I mean,
that's going to be more. That's a couple year project, but yeah.
Is there anything more, aside from the Atlantic? Is there anything more sort of terrestrial based that you've got lined up, or is there anything that you've never got to, or are you in that point now where you're like, the sky's the limit in terms of your imagination, what you can put together?
I think it's a little of both. Like I'm pretty lucky. I have some, I'm still able to do this because I have like great sponsors. So like I just switched from Hoka to Teva. So that's been great. And kind of like they've just tasked me with like, we just want you to go outside and do cool stuff. And so like, and they want to support me in that kind of crazy way. And so like, it's pretty awesome to be like, yeah, it's up to you to like come up with like fun adventures. And I was like, oh, sweet. Cause I've been doing that anyhow. So like, it just is like a, hand in glove type situation. And then I have another brand called Backline that I just started working with and making apparel. And they're like, we'll just make whatever you want to do cool stuff. So I'm like, okay, sweet. This is going to be awesome. But yeah, it is kind of just up to me. And, of course, with guidance from, the different brands I work with for like what's important to them. But yeah, I feel like I'm in like a pretty awesome place where, I have done a lot of the like traditional, like, world teams and Olympic trials and, running fast and podiums and all that kind of stuff. And like that stuff still interests me, but like also like, I want to do like this really cool adventure with one of my teammates on Teva where it's called the Infinity Loop, and it was dreamed up by like this mountaineer that was based kind of out in Seattle, Mount Rainier. And so you basically summit Mount Rainier, which is like a 15,000 foot peak, and then you run around the mountain, like it's called the Wonderland Trail, and so it's like 93 miles, and then you summit the mountain again, and then you run back to where you started. And so like that kind of stuff is like the stuff that like gets me like I don't know if I can do that, but also like I really want to do that. And so like I'm looking for those type of adventures, and then we're going to do another adventure where my family is going to be involved, and we're going to go to the British Virgin Islands here in January when it's kind of crappy weather where we are. And every morning I'm going to try to run to the top of a mountain or around one of the islands, and then kind of like scuba, snorkel in the afternoon, and see if the kids want to come on any of the adventure to kind of set some FKTs. And then if they don't, then I'll be back in time for breakfast. And so like, and then I want to just like kind of capture it and inspire people to like have crazy ideas and then try to execute on them. But like before that, I want to set the American record for 50 plus in the 50K running like sub 3:16 and like do some like get stronger, like, so I need to like turn this little like runner's body into like stronger so I can row too. So like I've got a lot of, goals to do that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm always looking for an adventure. So if there's people in your audience that they have something awesome, and I feel like every time I go to New Zealand, they tell me about some like crazy cool event that I've never heard of. Yeah, I'm down. So yeah, just let me know. I can jump on a plane and be there.
I believe you about that too. And I'm sure that your family would be on board. I was wondering when it comes to the adventures, because they accompany you to lots of these places, right? Do they put any pressure on, like,
Yeah.
we really want to go here, or we really want you to do this? Like, do they help guide these adventures?
100%. Yeah. Like, yeah, Jennifer was a huge factor in the British Virgin Islands. I think Grant was able to accompany me right after I got hurt in New Zealand. I literally flew home. And like a week later, we had I'd won a trip to Japan to race a marathon. So I got home, like, tried to get healthy, got cleared like the Friday before the Sunday race in Japan to race a marathon. And Grant accompanied me for 2 weeks, our 15-year-old, to Japan because he'd been wanting to go. It was funny. He was like super into anime when we booked the trip. And by the time we got there, he wasn't really into anime anymore. So like we didn't do as much of that stuff, but we did get to go to like explore the island. And I screwed up. I was hoping we would get to go skiing, and we didn't get to go skiing in Japan, but we're going to try to take that up. So like, yeah, I definitely try to cater to what the kids are interested in and what Jennifer wants to do. And they definitely pick and choose which events appeal to them. And you know that they've been lucky enough to get to visit you guys in New Zealand, and they met me up and we went to Australia. And so like we've definitely been able to get them kind of all over the world. And it's been cool because they kind of share that same passion for travel and adventure that we do.
Oh, good. Well, I just keep coming back to that thing that the term inspiring gets bandied about a lot in our culture, but this is truly, truly inspiring. Look, Michael, you've been so generous with us. I know it's a public holiday where you are, so we'll let you get back. But and all the best for that. But we'll ask you the question that we ask every single person who comes on Dirt Church Radio, and that's, Michael Wardian, what's been your greatest run ever?
Oh man. I think it's maybe recency bias, and I guess it depends on how you define greatest. But I think the moment a couple weeks ago, being able to run with our son Pierce at the Marine Corps, like that for me was like a full circle, like proud dad moment, and just to have the health to be able to do that at the pace that sometimes maybe the parent isn't in the same shape or the kid isn't in the same shape, or and to have it go so well, I think for me that was probably one of the most special runs I've ever had. And then being able to achieve the goal of finishing the Appalachian Trail, like with all the, I had to deal with a couple hurricanes. I ended up breaking some stuff and had to get off trail for work. And just to be able to, I lost my crew person like the week before the event, and like just to be able to kind of overcome all those circumstances and still, get it done. That for me was, one of the most special events. But yeah, I still think running with Pierce tops my life dream for some reason. So yeah, I'd say that for sure. But hopefully
Incredible.
more to come. Yeah, so no pressure on Grant.
Look, Michael, thank you so much for joining us on Dirt Church Radio. And yeah, I'll help crowdfund you going to the moon. That'd be epic.
Let's try to get some companies. I'd rather you guys donate that to the charities or something. Like I'll find a way to get there.
He's amazing. It's so, like, the word inspiring, it gets bandied around, the sport. Like, oh, that's so inspiring, or that's so epic, or that, like, the dude's amazing. If you're pulling
He
up
wants
stuff
to do all the things.
Well, he's done all the things.
Yeah.
And if you're pulling up, like I found myself pulling up facts, like in 2009, you did the Olympics trials marathon in like 2-something, and then 2:14 or something. And then the next day you ran another marathon in 2:21. Like that was in 2009. And he's like, yeah, I guess I did do that. That was cool. Way back in the memory banks.
Didn't you?
Didn't you? Yeah, no, I was not doing that in 2009. But yeah, he'll be down here soon enough, I'm sure. He'll definitely be probably wanting to knock off Tour Te Waipunamu. But man, how good.
Yeah, absolute legend. And just a great, inspiring example of how the sport should be portrayed to everybody.
Right. Well, look, this is the first of our. We've come to the end of the first time that Andrew and I have done this, and we'll all be swapping in and out of shows coming up. Like we said, Ali is in Queenstown and then heading off to Cozzy. But look, bro, good luck to you. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, the next time I see you, you'll be probably
Moaning
just
and complaining.
You might be though, because you do tend to recover from these pretty well. But I hope you get one over on Redfern on the Ledger.
Oh, me too, mate. Me too. Thanks, buddy.
Right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Dirt Church Radio is presented by me, Matt Raymond, Ali Pottinger,
and Andrew McDowell.
We're on all the podcast platforms, so like, follow, and give us a rating. It really helps. And we're on social media at Dirt Church Radio. You can email us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com.
Now, don't forget to sign up to the new podcast and newsletter. Don't forget to write in with your greatest run ever. We'd love to hear from you, and you can read them on the website too. Thanks to our supporters Further Faster and Squad Run, and our Substack subscribers in the DCR Aid Station crew.
Now stay tuned for our show in 2 weeks when we have another great guest lined up, and check out the DCR Aid Station next week.